with me as always, I've got Rob and Tim from over at OSR. Say hi, guys.
Hey.
How you doing?
And I don't know, Tim, you want to kick us off on this discussion today?
Yeah, sure. So, just from Rob and I's experience, just being in the MSP industry since about 2009, we've seen MSPs be set up in different ways when it comes to sales departments, and there's a couple different ways you can go about it. We believe very strongly in kind of the hybrid approach where a salesperson is making the calls, they're doing the appointments, they're following the entire process all the way through to the close. But there's also a need and a space for people who are true inside sales reps. And to us, what that means is more of the outbound strategy where they may be setting or feeding appointments to a principal lead. And then the last part is just having a true outside person where they're not really doing the prospecting as much on a day in, day out basis. They are really, in theory, they're jumping from sales appointment to sales appointment, no matter, and that can happen in various forms, whether it's a strong SEO and inbound lead generation techniques that are going on, or maybe with the assistance of an inside salesperson. Those tend to be the three things that we see. Again, internally here, we've always believed in a hybrid approach where one person takes that entire process, and reason for that, at least from a selfish standpoint, is that's what we used to do, and we know it can work with the right person.
Perfect. So, if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're really talking about is, a couple different models, and it probably ties into how MSPs evolve. And the majority of MSPs really kind of start out, would you not say, with kind of an owner-led sales process, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So, maybe.
Yeah, just the way.
And it sounds like that probably ties into kind of the hybrid category, would it not?
Yeah.
It would.
Yeah, for sure. Especially in the beginning when a salesperson is there.
Because it takes a while to get the salesperson going, right? So you bring in a salesperson, and especially if they're one of the newer hires for a principal-led system or an owner-led system, the owner knows all the ins and outs. They definitely don't have a lot of processes set up, and so they bring in that first sales rep, and their main job in the beginning there, whether they're doing it on the outside, they're doing it on the inside, is feeding that owner leads and getting and learning as they're going along, right? Because they don't have a lot of processes set up. So that principal-led system is usually for an operational maturity, a young company. Mm-hmm. And then as they're growing and teaching that rep, they're building the processes and getting everything out of that owner's head and getting it to that rep so they can go out and do it themselves.
So really they're playing the inside sales role as they're maturing within their own sales process before they're set out to the wild and kind of playing the hybrid role.
Right. Yeah.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Look, the reality is when a new salesperson starts, especially in the beginning, it's so important to make the calls and to generate the business intelligence where just by default, even if somebody has experience in the MSP industry as a salesperson, they still, in a way, have to start over from scratch. And that just by default means that they are starting out as an inside sales rep with the goal of moving them to more of a hybrid and maybe even an outside a pure outside rep in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So, these guys are going through lead generation. How do you, Rob, you were kind of touching upon it. How does the owner need to support these sales reps? And let's even go one step further. A lot of these owners are really technical-based owners who have been building their businesses on word of mouth. So how can somebody that's really working in that format really train a sales rep? And, what resources might be available to them if, in that process?
Sure. It's a really good question. I think the number one thing that an MSP owner should understand is valid expectations for the rep. So an MSP owner, in your example here, they grew by word of mouth, a lot of referrals. And in a referral-based sell, the owner is going to be able to close 50 to 75% of those deals, right? Somebody came in, they're kind of interested, you knew a friend of a friend, and the wall of trust has already been taken down, so it's easier to get that deal. And you can close that deal within 1 to 3 months as well. So you're closing, if you're getting it in, you're closing it, and you're closing it fast. When you bring in a rep, that timeline dramatically changes, right? It can take 6 to 9 months to close that deal. It can take that rep just to close it. It takes 6 to 9 months for one. And that rep is going to dramatically go down on their close ratios. So where you used to be closing 50 to 75% of your deals in 3 months, now it's taking you 6 to 9 months, and you're only closing between 10 and 25%, maybe 33% at the best. So getting your expectations in line for and understanding what that rep is doing, that's the number one most important thing that I can say to do.
Well, but to add to that too, the reason, I think the average MSP owner who has never had a salesperson and they're used to closing that 50, 70, 80% of the leads that come in the door because they are referrals, getting them to understand that mind shift of hey, MSP owner, your close ratios are going to drop significantly.
Yeah.
But here's why it's a benefit to you long term.
Yeah.
You're going to have so many more people in your pipeline that your wings are going to spread, and more people are going to know about you. The reason that you have a rep there is to drip on these people constantly. And one thing that I've always said that tends to drive Rob nuts, but it really is just
Here we go.
Yep. It really is for a lot of prospects out there. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when their current MSP makes a mistake.
Yeah, home run there, Tim. Home run.
Yeah. So, but the whole theory is when you're talking to a prospect and when they're MSP that they're working with, when they make a mistake, you want to be the first one that they think of. And the only way that you can put yourself in that position, or the best way, I would say, to put yourself in that position to be that first company that someone thinks of, is to have an outside rep that follows up with pinpoint precision on a consistent basis. You will close deals just by doing that.
So as they always say, right, all the money's found in the follow-up. And if you're not following up consistently, you're really watching those opportunities go out. But I think I was hearing something else that I'd like to get your guys' opinion on. And, one of the things that I hear often, especially in my role, talking to so many MSPs as I do every day, they'll talk about, hey, yeah, we had a sales team, but we ditched it because it really didn't work out. Yeah, we had a guy, we gave him 90 days and we threw him, it didn't work out. We let him go. I heard you guys both talking about sales expectation and setting the right expectation, and that those initial close rates can't be expected to be as high as the owners. You guys do a lot of coaching with owners. How do you get them to do that mind shift so they can be patient, right? Because that's the real problem. Is most of them aren't patient because all they're doing is counting the dollars going out the door and no dollars coming back.
Yeah. So, we build spreadsheets and ROI calculators to show them. And then we have dashboards that show them what reps are doing all over the nation. So once they see it and they understand it, then they can be like, okay, all right, I get it. And, we have lines, where we show how long it's taking for that rep to get themselves out of the hole, and when that rep is going to pass over zero and pass into profitability. And it can take a while, but if you can show people, where they're at in that graph, then they kind of get it. They kind of understand it. And if they can see where other people have done the same thing, then they start to say, okay, I can see that, I can understand it, and I know the money that I'm going to have to outlay in order to get this rep going. Because once you do get that rep going, and it can take 6 to 9 months to get that rep going from scratch, but once that rep's going, it's a pretty nice process.
So that's great when, obviously when people are engaged with you. But where I'm definitely seeing the challenge in is those customers that go into it blind, right? So, what I would say to those out there listening to this today, do some research before you hire a salesperson. Make sure you understand what, what the close rates are in the market. Get some of that competitive information that, Rob was just talking to. Because if you don't do that, your expectations almost 100% will be beyond what the reality is going to be. So, it's great when they can come to you guys, and I always suggest go visit these guys to get that information and get started. But for those that haven't done that, really, you got to go out there like any hire you're going to make. You hire a technician for skill sets that they possess so you can make sure it maps back to the projects you have. You got to do the research, especially if you haven't been in sales and you're a technical-led sales owner, to really understand, hey, this is what the process looks like for the average person. Referrals aren't the same as cold calling. This is what the industry really sees as close rates. Yes, yours may have been higher, but nobody's going to possess the knowledge or care as much as you do, right? So, you know, I don't know if you guys got anything else you want to share on that, you know, any other thoughts about kind of conditioning the mindset of the manager in this process too, or the owner, really, we're talking about.
Yeah, I guess so. The one thing I would say to that is, to your point, a lot of MSP owners, they take the time to do the research to hire the technical side, and they make sure that there's right certificates, and they've gone to the right classes, and they have the right experience. I think that it is more important that they look into and investigate everything that they should be looking for in a salesperson, because at the end of the day, the average MSP owner is very good at hiring, training, and managing technical staff, but they just don't know how to translate that to a salesperson. So if you are looking to start a sales team or just bring on your first person in general, the two things that you need to understand is 20-mile march. It's not going to happen overnight, especially if you hire a salesperson. You know, it's going to take some time. They need to have the right setup. They need to have the right training, the right scripts, the objections. They need, I would argue, maybe more support than the average tech, because tech, in theory, a tech can come in and, you know, they know how to do a password reset, you know, a help desk. They can do a level 1 things, and they just know how to do it, right?
Yeah.
As salesperson walking into the MSP industry, oftentimes they don't even know what an MSP does. So it's a different beast, right?
Yeah.
And on the flip side of that can create a bit of a vicious cycle, because the MSP owner gets frustrated because the salesperson doesn't understand the industry. The salesperson gets frustrated because he or she doesn't feel like they're getting support. And then 6 months later, the MSP owner and the salesperson part ways, and oh my God, I'll never hire a salesperson again. What a huge mistake.
Yeah.
So it's something that we've seen often. So
yeah. I mean, to piggyback on that, like, think about your tech that comes in. You hire a tech. You did all this. You know, you maybe even gave them testing. You checked out her certifications. You did all this, but at the end of the day, that tech, when they have an issue that they don't understand, they can look to the left, they can look to the right, and talk to two people that also are there and are doing the exact same thing to piggyback off and talk to. A sales rep is usually the only person in that company that is on the sales side. And when they look to the left, to the right, they got nada. So that's the thing that, you know, the owners have to understand is there's got to be active engagement every single day with that rep. There's got to be training both in the beginning and ongoing all the time. You know, knowledge wins, and especially in this market. And the last thing that I would want to make sure that the owner knows when they're doing their research out there is the clear expectations on the goal for closes. It's usually about 1 deal per month is the absolute best that a rep can do on closing MSP deals. So then you have to back your way up the chain on funneling how to get to that 1 deal per month. You know, and how many proposals does it take? How many technical meetings does it take? How many on-sites, discoveries? How many appointments is it going to take? How many calls? So they got to start with where they're going to end and then move themselves up the chain. And then that's how they're going to be able to build their system.
So you really got to have your metrics ready to go before you even get started into this. If you're just going into this and you don't have a plan, you don't have time to engage, and you don't have metrics to measure to, you might as well not do it. You're just going to throw your money out.
I would say not do it. Do something like inside, you know, account management, or do something else. Don't invest heavily into a rep when you're not ready.
Yeah.
It's going to make you frustrated, and you're going to spend a lot of money and come out on the other side in 6 months, and it's not going to work.
Yeah, and that's and just to add to that, depending on the size of the MSP and when they're looking to bring that salesperson in, you know, let's just throw out a round number of that MSP has 50 clients, right? And they're like, you know what, now's the time to bring in an inside salesperson. If they don't have the if they don't have the processes on the back end for a salesperson to start and be successful, hire an account manager, have them call on your current clients to drum up business that quite honestly a tech just can't find, and also help you with your QBRs. I mean, that's a good stone to getting to
totally agree.
Either a hybrid or a true salesperson.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, Tim, you've actually started setting the tone for next week's episode, because I know that is, that is going to be our topic, really diving into kind of the account management principles.
Yeah.
But, I know we're kind of nearing the end of our episode here. So what I think we should do is really kind of touch base on some critical things that you need to consider when you're hiring that first salesperson. What are some of the qualities you might be looking for? What are some of the traits that person should have? And what are some of the things that you might need to do yourself to kind of get outside the box and help this person? So Rob, you want to lead off on that one?
Yeah, sure. So there's a couple things that you want to make sure when you're looking to hire that first sales rep. The things that we watch for, and I have interviewed, and Tim has interviewed just hundreds and hundreds of salespeople in the MSP industry. The general rule, and there's always ways around this rule. So these aren't hard and fast. These are just guidelines. Number one, no more than 2 jobs in 5 years. That's you don't want the job hoppers, and you want to make sure that they're not doing that. You want them to have long sales cycle experience. It doesn't have to be in the MSP industry, but they have to be in a long sales cycle experience. They've got to have large contracts. We deal with large contracts in this industry, so they've got to have that experience. And you want them to be in the top 25% of whatever job that they were at. Somewhere. It doesn't have to be in the last job, but in the last couple of jobs, they need to have been in the top 25% somewhere, and it needs to be provable. And then if the unicorns out there is if they were in the same job and they got promoted in that same job in sales, they are a unicorn. They are the team captains. Those are the people that you really want. And then the last thing, and this is what we do in the interview process. You want to find that innate skill that people have on the hunting side. So somewhere in the interview, you're going to say to them, hey, everything looks great, but I don't think you're a good fit for whatever reason. You find some flaw. And the bad sales reps out there will say, yeah, but you guys are going to train me, right? And that's your typical bad response. The really good salespeople out there will say, if you say, yeah, you're really great, but you're not in this industry, and I don't think you would be a good fit because you don't understand our industry. And so the really good reps will say, yeah, I understand where you're coming from. So they'll handle the objection by saying, something like, yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but I didn't understand widgets in my last job, and I was able to come back, and then they use an example on how to come back with that objection handling. So you kind of punched them in the nose. They handled a real life objection right on the spot and then showed you why. So they handled an objection. And those types of people right there are your golden tickets. Those are the ones you want, because they're going to get objections in the real world too with your prospects.
Yeah. And the other 2 things that I do, and I know Rob does at least one of them as well. 2 things I do specifically is when an interview is wrapping up with a salesperson, if they don't ask for the next step, that's a big red flag.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of interviews that I've been in where it is just painfully awkward because I have asked, do you have any more questions? About 5 times in about a 5-minute period. Yeah. And they just keep on looking at me like, no, why the hell are you asking me again? And to me, that's a bit of a dead ringer because you're at your best during the interview process and you need to sell yourself. So you need to be asking for the next step. And then the other thing I like to do, and people may have different opinions on this, admittedly, I like to tell a sales rep that, hey, if they ask for the next step, I like to tell them what that next step is and say, I'll be in touch with you by tomorrow, close of business. And I purposely don't follow up with them because I want to see if they're going to follow up with me. Now, I won't let it go forever, but I will wait an extra day to see if that person follows up with me.
100% agree.
And that separates people right there.
That's the hunters.
All right. Well, it sounds like we've covered most details. I'll kind of end with my one parting shot. You know, Rob, you mentioned looking for people that are outside the MSP industry. I find if you look for guys that have sold things that are intangible, like insurance, like, you know, like financial services, things that people can't touch and feel, but can find value in. That's really what we need to have within our industry too, because a lot of what we do just can't be felt. The impact isn't visible. So, you know, that's kind of my 2 cents on the type of qualities to look for with that. You know, I thank you guys for joining me today. And, you know, I think we had a good session, covered things on sales. Join us next week when we're going to talk a little bit about account management and really how to maximize the value found within the existing client base you have today. Guys, thanks a lot, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Take care, man.